They're always looking for stories, and if you're passionate about ranked choice voting or star voting or ending gerrymandering, um, you can write to any media outlet, local. You can write to it's more citywide or whatever. If you send them, you're like, hey, like I have like an article half written here. I'd love to finish this and give you guys an article from a concerned citizen, or a letter to the editor from a concerned citizen. Like they get that and they're like, heck yeah, like I'm always looking for stuff to publish. So if you're sitting there being like, hey, I really want my voice to be heard on this topic, you can be heard.
Absolutely. That helped us in the Connecticut these past few months. Monty Frank, who is he was the head of the Agreeable Frank for Connecticut party. That was a small minor party that was started in 2018 for an independent run for governor, and is now merged into the Forward Party. He was absolutely taking advantage of that and wrote about ranked choice voting and our governor's endorsement for it in the Hartford Courant. It was a local newspaper in one of the big cities in Connecticut. And like Justin was saying, you're absolutely right, Justin, that a lot of these local outlets, they're looking for stuff to publish. They would love to publish anything that people put out. And there's probably a lot of people who are thinking, hey, I would love to hear from independents. I mean, I've personally been reached out to by a couple journalists. This past summer, I spoke to someone from the New York Post and Fox News separately. And they were both just like, hey, you're Gen Z, independent, forward party. We would love to hear your perspective. There's a lot of people out there that are actively looking for other perspectives. And if you put yourself out there, they will come for sure. Anyone else who's in the space who would like to come up and speak, please request. Anyone who's a speaker, feel free to jump in. I want to give a quick shout out to Christy Talmadge. She requested to speak earlier, but was having some technical issues and wasn't able to speak. So I felt like I should give her a shout out since she wasn't able to join the space tonight.
Hey, how's it going, Brown Gordon Ramsay? What's up?
Brown, how are you doing?
Brown, you're on mute. If you want to talk, you might be muted if you're trying to talk.
Sorry. Hey, my name's Tiku. I was actually a policy analyst and researcher for the Andrew Yang presidential campaign. And sort of the one thing about ranked choice voting, and I'd really like more data on this, but it doesn't seem to exist, is sort of the pros and cons of it, right? Like, so the alleged cons are that people are going to find it too difficult to understand, and so it's going to keep them away from voting. That's one of the primary criticisms of RCV. And yeah, I don't know, like maybe it's kind of worth, if there's a PAC or something to actually do a little bit of study on that and be like, hey, yeah, no, actually this isn't the case. Because I think in all of the places that they've installed ranked choice voting so far, like in the state of Maine, like the entire state of Maine, they did the first like statewide voting on it a couple of years ago, and then in the Pacific Northwest as well. It's turned out to have very positive outcomes. But yeah, it's said that lower income folks or lower information voters are going to be resistant to this. And I'm like, how do we get past that? And I think more data is needed. I don't know.
Well, I can speak to the exit polls from Alaska, this most recent election, said something like high 80s or above 90% of people felt like ranked choice voting was simple. Um, and that's the first time they've used it. So, as Alaska continues to have ranked choice voting, more people will be able to kind of figure out, hey, what's going on here. So I think that it's definitely a different system, and I appreciate that you're concerned about people's like lower information people, because I don't want a voting system that like blocks people out because of their level of knowledge or something like that. Like that's awful.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is like that may not necessarily be true. I think that people who have might have less education or whatever will still be able to get the concept.
Yeah, I agree with that. As Justin said, in Alaska, the exit polls showed something like 85 to 90% of voters found it incredibly easy to use. Or I think the way the question was framed was something like it was just as easy to use as any other, as the traditional voting system. But you do have a point in explaining that to people. That I have seen that as kind of the biggest point of opposition against it. And I think you're right that it's just not true. If you kind of put it to, if you're talking with someone and they say, like it could be confusing. I mean, just, give them an example election. Say like, well, take the 2020 presidential election. Like, would it have been that difficult to rank the candidates? Like, no, if you look into it for a second, it's a very hollow kind of argument against ranked choice voting. But you're absolutely right that I think we should be out there saying, making that case more strongly. Like, it's very simple. It's ranking candidates. This is like elementary school kids could do it.
Unless someone else wants to jump in, I had another point I wanted to mention, but I don't want to take up all the oxygen in the room.
Go for it, please.
So I think the point of the Forward Party is sort of getting a little lost, and it's about like, having people at the municipal level, having people at the judicial level be Forward Party candidates and win those elections. And when you get to it, it's like, oh, it's a third party. You're trying to run for president. You're gonna, mess up the whole thing. And it's like that's not even the purpose. Like, I think even Andrew Yang has said, like, we're not trying to run for president. And so I wonder how we might get that message across about how, like, just all the kitchen table issues can be figured out by these municipal elections, by these judicial elections, etc. The stuff that's really closer to home for you as a voter.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a two-pronged answer to it. So the first part is exactly what you said, which is, a lot of these kitchen table issues, a lot of the things that impact people's day-to-day lives in terms of policy are decided at the local level. That's actually not really something I had thought of too much in terms of making that argument, but that's a really good point. And then the other side of that is that Justin was saying earlier, that at some point, I'm sure there will be a Forward Party presidential candidate, but that can only come once there is this foundation for the party. That can only come, whether that's 2028, 2020, or 2032, whatever it is, it will get there. But in the current scenario, in our current political environment, third parties just aren't able to win beyond municipal elections. And so it's a little bit of a two-pronged argument, and it's sometimes difficult to make because it is a little bit complex. But saying, we can impact these kitchen table issues at the local level, and we can pass these voting reforms at the state and national level that will give us a path to, making changes at that level.
Yeah, I think Tiku, you're asking about like how do we kind of I think what you were asking was how do we like take control of the message and help people see what we're really doing? Is that right?
Yes.
So I think that will be really, really boosted over time because the Ford Party is very new and different state parties are kind of at different points. But I think over time they're going to put out more um, policy statements and like policy guardrails. I think that the plan is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Holden or Gang UBI. I think the plan is that the California Forward Party and the Texas Forward Party, like Californians and Texans have different preferences, so those parties are going to have different stances on like abortion or guns or this or that. And I think the plan for the state parties themselves is to be quite decentralized as well, right? Insofar as like just as the Forward Party National is not issuing imperial decrees down to Forward Party Texas, Forward Party Texas I think really wants to let DFW versus Houston kind of do their own things, but the point that I'm coming to here is that over the next year, I think that these lower level parties are going to come out and have more issues that they support than just the big ones that Ford Party National supports. And I think as soon as as soon as Ford Texas comes out and says, "Hey, any candidate that we endorse, they're going to have an opinion on abortion that is bound by these guardrails," right? Because most Americans, if you look at a poll, it says 50% pro-life, 50% pro-choice. It looks like we're as divided as ever on abortion. But if you drill down into it, there's a small percentage of people who think that abortion should never happen, and there's a small percentage of people who believe that abortion should be available in absolutely every circumstance. But there's a large group of Americans in the middle who think, okay, abortions should generally be legal, in the early period, and then should be maybe a little more restricted later period, or however it breaks down. So I think that you're going to see these state parties come out and say, hey, we're not endorsing someone who has, a view farther to the right of this, and we're not endorsing someone who has a view farther to the left of this. And I think once those local organizations have those views, I think that the problem you're talking about will start to resolve itself, because people will start to see what the Ford Party stands for. And I've been to the Ford Party's website really recently. They have like a really nice digital interface, like state-based. Like you can click on each state. I know this maybe it's a little silly, but they have like a really nice map on their website that you can click on each state and kind of figure out, hey, what's Texas doing? And I think that when the 6 months from now or whatever, that website might be a little more advanced. It might let you like click on Texas and figure out, hey, specific aspects of the Texas Forward Party in terms of like its policy and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I don't know, but I feel like with a good website, we can tell people a lot about what we stand for on those other issues, while at the same time letting different Americans from different parts of the country have different Forward parties that are designed for them and built by them.
And just to echo that quickly, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Brown. It is, Justin, you're right that it's going to look similar to what Joe and Chase were saying about the Libertarian Party today. Is that it'll look a little bit more like 50 state parties with a national party that supports them all but doesn't dictate policy to them.
Interesting. One final question, as someone that has worked on Andrew Yang's campaign for what was it, like a year and a half, do any of y'all have any sort of idea on how to like apply for a gig there? Because I haven't seen like a careers portion of the website or anything, and the folks that I worked with are no longer with Andrew Yang or the Forward Party. So and this might be interesting for any of the other people that are listening.
Yeah, you can so just specifically you can shoot me a DM and I can connect you. I think Allie, who was here before, she would be a good person to talk to. But the best way to do that probably is to reach out to your state group, because that's where most of the action is happening. But to you and anyone else in the group who is interested in that as well, shoot me a DM and I will get you in contact with the right people about that.
Wonderful. That's absolutely beautiful. I yield my time.
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming up to speak. Yeah. On that, just the majority of the work is happening at the state level right now. So, for example, I'm personally working with Connecticut Voters First, which is not Forward Party, but it's run by some of the same people who are working with Forward. So it's legally unaffiliated, but kind of working hand in hand. And so what we're doing is we're just working on passing ranked choice voting in Connecticut, and we got the governor to endorse it within the past couple months, and have a bill coming up in the legislature in January or February. So it's a very decentralized structure. It's very much the national party saying, we will give you the resources, the support to do what you think is best for your state. Justin, I don't know if you want to build off that a little bit with kind of what you guys are doing in Texas.
I don't have a lot to add. I think Forward Texas right now is kind of forming an infrastructure. Forward Texas is merging with the Ram Party, which had a big presence in Texas before the merger. So Forward, of course, the legacy Forward Party merged with the Ram and Sam Party over the summer, and so we've been combining, and they've been kind of forming like the different committees, like the policy committee, which is going to figure out what policies the Forward Party Texas stands for, and different things like that. So we're kind of organizing and sorting some stuff out, because there's like a lot of different like just county chairs in Texas, just because Texas is pretty big. So
yeah, and I know a lot of the work right now is not very glamorous work, as Ali was saying earlier, and Josh was saying too. There's so many rules that are set up that are designed just to be barriers for third parties getting involved in the process. I don't know how many people were here earlier, but for Tennessee, for example, it's like 25 signatures to get on the ballot as Democrat or Republican, and then like 33,000 to get on the ballot as a third party. So a lot of the work that's going on right now is just dealing with stuff like that, dealing with, okay, what do we need to do to overcome these monumental barriers that are put up against us, just to hold us back, that have been kind of,
I don't want to directly contradict you in a bad way, Holden, but I feel like not glamorous. I mean, the work can be very meaningful if you not trying to take you down here, but I think the work can be very meaningful if you're passionate about it. Like I really like connecting with people on street corners. Like it's something that I would do a lot if the pay was as good as like the jobs that I need to work for money are, and if I had the time to. But because I mean, I think probably a lot of people on this call share this with me. I'm very passionate about these issues that are gripping our society, and it's really cool to just be standing on a street corner and be like, hey, like you want to. I mean, in my opinion, it's really cool to be standing on a street corner and be like, hey, you want to sign this petition? Like we're gonna take down the duopoly. You want to be part of that? Like you want that to be a part of your life story. Connecting with this organization that's going to really do a lot to fix politics. And I come from Forward from I come from Forward from the pro-life movement. I would now consider myself moderately pro-choice, but for the pro-life movement, I guess since that's my backstory, like that is a very difficult issue to talk to people about on the sidewalk. So comparing that past issue to Forward, I freaking love talking to people about electoral reform because it's what everybody wants. Like people are usually if they have the time, if they're busy, they're just gonna grab by and be like, no, I don't want to talk to you right now. But if they have the time to sit and talk, people are really excited. Like, wow, yeah, the political system is awful. The two-party system is really bad. I do hate gerrymandering, and it's just this really fun opportunity to connect with people. So if you're passionate about these issues, we got to get a lot of signatures, and that can be kind of downer. But I think it can be really cool if you can get excited about it and connect with people. And it's something that I'd like to do more if I can make more time for it. It's just a matter of how much time you can make for it. But it's just really cool because you connect with people and you kind of learn, kind of like on this call, you learn like, hey, Joe's got this perspective, Joe's passionate about it from this perspective, and you just hear different people's perspectives, and it can be really empowering. And it's cool too if you get someone who's really excited, you get their email, you get their phone number, and you're like, hey, like maybe next time we're out here on the streets, I'll see you, and maybe you'll be alongside me, talking to other people. So it's really exciting, and it's honestly, I mean, with Forward